Hi, welcome to our Equality and Inclusion for Young People in Business Insight session. My name's Pip Wilkins. I'm the CEO at the British Franchise Association, and we're here to look after franchisors and franchisees in the UK market. So today we're going to be talking to a panel of 4 people, all about young people in business. So let's get some introductions. Eleanor.
Hi, I'm Eleanor. I run a Little Voices franchise. I've been running it for 6 years now, and I have got 7 staff that work alongside me.
Fantastic. Johnny?
Yeah, my name's Johnny Nasso. I'm a McDonald's franchisee. I've been for 3 years, and I have 350 employees.
Fantastic.
Hi, I'm Emily Price, and I work for the BFA Academy, and we have a particular passion for educating our next generation and new leaders within the franchising space.
Thank you. And Jane?
Hi, I'm Jane James. I'm founder and CEO at Little Voices. We teach drama and singing in franchise network across the UK.
So I love a good stat, and we're going to kick off with one of those. It lays bare some stuff, and it's a stat and findings from YouGov, where it says 82% of young people from disadvantaged backgrounds view the business sector as difficult to access, and 4 in 5, which is 78%, wouldn't know where to get advice about setting up a business, with the main barrier being a lack of funding. And that's 79% of people saying that. What are your thoughts, guys, on this?
I feel like I'm not surprised, even though that's quite sad to hear. When I was in school or college or in education, I probably didn't feel like there was a way of kind of going along that pathway. I think funding is probably always going to be a barrier, especially for young people.
Yes, same. Doesn't surprise me at all. I go back to when I was at university, and there was very little advertisement around franchising, funding, what's available after you finish university. For me, coming into franchising, I was fortunate enough to know somebody in the franchising sector, and they had their own funding models to get into business. And it's about, for me, how can we create that culture within universities, colleges, to really hone in on the fact that there's great opportunity for people within franchising.
It's a great question for us, and one for Emily particularly, because we are doing quite a lot on this area now in terms of academy and taking forward that education of the next generation, because we know only 18% of franchisees are under the age of 30.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree, and you hit on a really great point. I want to acknowledge the stats originally that you stated at the outset there. I think, you become a version of who you're around, and when you come into the world as a child, you really don't have any control over your environment, and that is when a lot of your cultural values and your inspiration, motivation is formed. And so it does not surprise me at all that many people don't realise that there is that opportunity, because for the majority, they probably don't experience that in their younger years. In fact, they might experience things that are quite, to the detriment of their development. If we then move forward for, them coming out of an educational school system and going into college and then leaving and thinking, well, what can I do next? Really, it is our role to educate, get into that educational system, into the universities, the business schools, the colleges, even the GCSE students, and just talk to them about what it means to be in business, to be in franchise business, to be your own boss, and understand that you can raise funds, you can go to work and you can save some money. And if you play a little bit of the longer game, it's not going to be an immediate win. But if you're prepared to save the money, there's an opportunity out there with the support of the banks to maybe do something for yourself that you absolutely love. But we have to show them that, because you don't know what you don't know, do you?
And it's something that you do, don't you? You really try and foster young people coming into your franchise in particular?
We absolutely do, because I learned many, many years ago that if we can sort of home grow through, that is absolutely the best way. And that's the only way we can pass on that education to others. So having a programme through the businesses or the franchises that really fosters young talent. So, coming out of our classes, our children can become assistants, they can become assistant tutors, they can become front of house, they can take on some additional duties, work on theatre camps and theatre weeks, and it's just an organic journey then to think, well, I could be a tutor, and what's her role, and could I be a franchisee?
Yeah. It's the one journey that we're seeing more and more. So whenever we do our awards programs and events, and I know you run the awards last year. So for us, we're seeing that transition of franchisees finding a brand by accident, finding franchising by accident, and then kind of going on a journey to go through it. And I know you did, obviously, with McDonald's isn't your first franchise.
Yeah.
You're a serial franchisee already at such a young age. So what was it for you? Talk us through your journey. And
yeah, so I actually qualified as a quantity surveyor from university. Didn't enjoy it. Went travelling in Australia for 2 years, and again I was fortunate enough to know somebody within franchising who presented an opportunity to me to become a franchisee. Originally though, my way in, because I didn't have the funding, was to work for the company for 12 months and then with an option to buy the franchise after 12 months. It was going so well that I bought the franchise within 6 months. And that really, from there, allowed me to elevate my business as a franchisee, to grow it to multiple territories, have multiple franchises. And I got to a point then where, what else is there within franchising? Was I going to steer off and go away from franchising? Absolutely not, because of the doors and avenues that it's opened up for me. And I started looking at the McDonald's system. Very challenging to get through the recruitment process. But again, I wouldn't be able to become a McDonald's franchisee if I hadn't have ran a smaller franchise, built up equity, and then come in to become a McDonald's franchisee.
Can I just ask, in that journey, how did you know that was kind of the path to build the equity and then look at something bigger? Did you have kind of a mentor or a guide or something?
Yeah, so a couple of things for me. So I have a business coach, and he's actually part of another franchise. And I took on my business coach at the age of 22. Was I the finished article? Am I the finished article now? Absolutely not. But for me, it's about how can I become a better version of myself day in, day out. Understand business in a greater depth, plan, have action plans in place. I even use him now to coach some of my senior employees. And with that, it just opens up further avenues. But a big part of franchising for me as well is the training and development of your own people, and asking the question, how can we get better as an organisation? So for me, the real opportunity of using a business coach to enhance my skills within my previous franchise allowed me then to go on to look at, well, what is bigger out there within the franchising world.
So I have a good question on that. So we've just touched on that in terms of, we didn't know what franchising was. It was something that we found by accident. What can we do to raise the awareness of franchising to the younger generation? What would make it appealing, and what would have been the kind of standout things that we want to see?
I think it is in education. I think because we obviously have fallen upon it, and not everyone will do that. So I think it's probably getting in front of younger people earlier on and seeing that this is an option. I did business studies in college, and I wasn't even taught about franchising, which I now find strange. But not me going to business studies to try and learn, but actually already having that experience and that knowledge within maybe school, or like other kind of workshops or things like that maybe the education system can invest in, maybe.
I suppose it's thrown out and talking more about kind of training and education, because we say often in franchising that you don't need to come with specific skills. We don't want you to have necessarily come from that particular sector. So in talking about that, what are the kind of skills that we want people to have before franchising is a thing?
Oh, I want someone to just have passion, initiative, an interest, a hunger, a thirst to learn. I think those are the top three things that can come. And just going back to the point about colleges and education, I was really surprised when my daughter was looking at colleges that actually in that business studies course they did talk about franchising. So in some they are touching on it and some they're not, I suppose, depending on the exam board. That has to change, and I think as franchisors and as business owners we should be sort of pushing for that to happen in the colleges, you know, lower down the system.
Yeah, it's not standard in the curriculum, and the point is, even at that level, people often don't understand it. They don't actually know what business format franchising is. And when we say that, we're not talking about a pyramid scheme. You know, we're talking about a proven business model with support. And essentially, if you have got the skills and the passion and the get up and go, you can build this business from the ground up and make something very good that will give you a great return later down the line. But a lot of people don't know that exists, and I think we need to start at a more influential level with this, and we need to go into the institutions and speak to them about the curriculum and the opportunity and having this on their business courses, because you know, why wouldn't you? It's a great growth
If we
option.
don't have franchising on an MBA programme in the next 2 years, I'm going to be really disappointed. I want to talk a bit about barriers and challenges. So do you feel as young people coming into franchising that it was, or coming into business full stop, that it was welcoming and you were like, yeah, this is a good route for me to go in? Or were there things where people had that kind of unbiased, you're too young to own a business, or even now, you're too young to be in business, they don't get it, that unbiased culture where they don't know it?
Yeah, I think so. I think for me, I was 22 when I began the franchise. Luckily, I had obviously Jane's the franchisor, and she was extremely supportive. But you know, when you're a franchise, you get the package and you get the support, but then you are the one that's responsible to kind of grow that business. I think for me at the start, it was probably the recruitment of staff that was the biggest challenge, because I'd maybe find the potential tutors and contact them via email or phone calls, and it'd be absolutely fine. But when it came to then meeting them in person, it'd be a completely different story. And it'd be almost like I was the one being interviewed and maybe questioning my ability and my experience. And then I'd either go back and offer them a job or ask to meet again, and I'd maybe get no response or no, I'm not interested anymore.
It gives you a really bad case of imposter syndrome.
Yeah, but looking back now, I get that. But at the time, I don't think that that's what I thought. I just was like, right, on to the next person. But now when I look back, I do think definitely, my mum's even said it to me, like, you had so much interest in someone so enthused on the phone to you at the initial point of contact, but then once you've gone to meet them, and that's not, you know, it was my first time ever interviewing someone, so I didn't really know how it would go. But now when I look back, I do think, yeah, definitely I was probably judged a little bit.
Absolutely agree. When I came in at 22, I was the youngest franchisee by some distance. Wasn't normal at the time. A lot of franchisees would be quite dismissive of me, quite judgmental. So I actually used that energy in terms of, I'm going to prove a point here. I'm going to prove them wrong, and I'm going to showcase it doesn't matter what age you are. It's not about age, it's about what you bring as a business owner. From that, I went on to become the #1 franchisee in the country. And a lot of people started to turn their heads.
Sweet, I'll smash it out the park.
How are you doing this? I'd have people question how I'd got to where I'd got to. And ultimately, I think for the franchisor that I was part of at the time, that definitely changed their recruitment process.
So it's like a driver for you. It drove you and spurred you on.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'm resilient, and you have to be, and I'm sure it's
competitive, maybe a little bit.
Extremely competitive, but that comes from my sporting background. And for me, it was all about what can I do to showcase actually young people deserve an opportunity within franchising and running their own business.
I know you've obviously experienced quite a lot. You've come into business quite young as well, in kind of growing and through a male-dominated sector. And we've been on a journey together at the BFA. But talk to us a little bit about, from your perspective, some of the challenges and some of the things that you think we can change as an industry?
I'm going to take for a minute my earlier years experience when I was at Barclaycard, because I was very fortunate to find myself working with colleagues and in a team that was hugely empowering. And I think, you know, I was very young at the time, and it was the HR director that gave opportunities. He was a very generous person in terms of his time. He identified the key skills and attributes that he saw potential in with the person, and then he would invest the time in that person. And you know, during that time there, I had many opportunities with him and his senior team to do global projects and get exposure to lots of things that I wouldn't have otherwise had. And honestly, a little bit like you were saying, Eleanor, I felt a little bit exposed, and I had my own barriers. That kind of imposter syndrome creeped in a little bit. But time after time, they reassured me, you deserve a place at this table. We're asking you your opinion, even though it is the C-suite executive table.
So that's someone in business that has taken you...
championing.
And championed
Yes,
you.
yeah.
And that's so important in franchising, right?
100%. That arm around your shoulder, that you are valued, your voice counts. You deserve that place at the table, and as leaders we've got to be doing that more and more.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say, with Jane, I think at the start, you really helped me get over that imposter syndrome type of thing. And I think the more that you were asking me to share my ideas, then other franchisees within our network were then asking me for advice. And that's when I started to think, oh, okay, like, you know, I'm valuable too, yeah. So I think it comes from the top, I think, and having that person that does support you, especially when you're younger.
And I think that's the point as well. It's the leadership. And actually, as leaders, we need to hold up the mirror and say, you know, what can we do to make an impact and a difference and create opportunity as well?
That's great, because my next question was all about how leaders can set a tone for diversity and inclusion through their actions.
I think for me, I can relate to it by creating opportunity. Again, I was given an opportunity with my previous franchise because I knew the CEO. That doesn't happen to everybody. Because I've been through that journey, I've been given an opportunity and showcased what I can do, particularly within my business. It doesn't matter about age. It doesn't matter. For me, it's all about, does this person warrant an opportunity based around performance? And that's what I focus on. It's not around length of service. It's based on what they bring to the team. For me, I've always advocated for that. That won't change. And it just goes back to, I'm going back to my roots and the opportunity that I was given, and I will stay true to those by offering opportunity to others based on performance.
My big experience was similar. I came into the association when I was 19, and I had an opportunity for someone to mentor me, and I was lucky. I grew as the business grew. But for me, I think it's one of those things that I always look now at people and how you can grow them and support them, to give them opportunity within the business. And I think that's the critical part of what any leader should do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that, you know, from a young person's perspective, that and anyone, they've got to be a bit brave. You've got to be a bit brave and just push that comfort zone a little bit. It might just take that, sending that one email or at you into saying one thing that you just pushes. You do have to be a little bit brave as well.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to knock on the door, otherwise it will never open.
Ask the question. If you're curious, ask the question, because you just don't know what the answer's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. I think also, you know, from a strategic perspective, as businesses evolve, it's worth thinking about the roles that you're recruiting for. You know, are there some work placement opportunities or apprenticeship opportunities that could be provided instead of going for somebody with the experience? You know, put some of that money or budget into training somebody and giving them the opportunity to grow with the company. Actually, you'll get quite a loyal person out of that as well.
Just touching on that, this is what McDonald's are fantastic with. There's the graduate degree programme, so that's a 5-year degree programme, offers great opportunities to employees of ours. And from that, actually, you see them go on a journey. And that whole journey is to get them to the business manager of the restaurant. And I've not seen that in so many other businesses where there's this graduate program that is available to all. There's an application process, but again, it's opening up avenues for all of our employees.
I think it's for me, things don't always run smoothly. You know, we've got some great examples here of, you know, how we've all been successful and grown, but it doesn't always work. How do we address where things aren't working? You know, where a young person isn't maybe getting the support that they need. What can we do differently there to make sure that, you know, we're looking after their mental health, their well-being, and helping them? Because a lot of success can bring a fuzzy head.
I think it is very much about, you know, having conversations. It's connecting and building a meaningful relationship, not just, you know, a one-to-one for the sake of ticking a box, and making sure that there is room for that well-being conversation and also aspiration conversation. Where would they like to go? And I know, you know, from experience, and we have quite a young team, and in the past there was one particular colleague that came into a role, and really it was very apparent after 3 months it was completely the wrong fit for that person. But he had some amazing skills and his attitude was fantastic, and we sat down and we spoke about it, and I spoke to another manager in the business and we actually repurposed him into a different role, and, you know, it went very well. It is going very well, and he was able to, you know, find the confidence and thrive in something that worked well for him. So it's about just knowing your people and finding the opportunity for them to thrive.
So I wonder, at what age do we need to be talking about business as an option and franchising as an option? Because is it at school level time? Because, you know, people say, what do you want to do when you grow up? You know, and as a small kid, you know, I want to be a fireman or a mechanic or a lifeguard or, you know, a footballer or a ballerina. You know, there's all those things that people have in their head, and then you get to that sort of, you know, 16, 17, and people are like, well, what do you want to do? Pick your course, and you're like, oh. How can we do more to say, look, there's an option, and you can go and start looking at business. You might not invest until you're 20, 25, but this is something you can save towards and strive towards.
You have to see it, don't you? You have to know about it. And if there's not business people speaking in schools, if there's not franchisors, franchisees going into schools, doing talks, giving someone a role model to look to and showing them an opportunity. They know about vets and doctors and beauticians because they're told about it every day. But if we're not in those places giving them that education, they've no one to look to think, oh, that's an opportunity for me, maybe.
Sure, phones listen to you now. I'm just going to start walking down the street going, franchising.
Also, I think that, you know, at a young age, franchising is not an easy concept to get your head around. I mean, you know, schools don't even really talk about money, do they, or how to manage money, and that's one of the things you said, you know, you've got to build this asset up to be able to invest to start your business. And so I think it's just kind of bringing it back to, there is an opportunity for you to actually be a business owner. So we go in with the basics and then we introduce the franchising concept because we're talking their language at that point. So it's very easy if we go in too, you know, if we go in too early to maybe kind of confuse the topic. So maybe GCSE going into A-level is a nice time to introduce it, because then you've started to talk about business is the thing that's in their language and their educational kind of journey at that point.
I remember when, and you might have been the same, obviously we were the same age, 22, and you look at your peers that are like, what on earth is a franchise, what are you doing? And it's quite hard to even, for us to explain it to your friends, but I used to always use McDonald's as an example, and used to say, well, you know McDonald's, you know, you see it, and that's kind of was my explanation of a franchise. So yeah, I think it's even the more that younger people are doing it, they're then seeing their peers doing it, and maybe that conversation happens naturally there. But I think it's definitely having to get in front of people and seeing that it is an option, and probably GCSE level or just before A-level is a good time to do that.
And I think, you know, there's other ways into franchising. Not everybody wants to own a business, but, you know, being employed in a franchise, we say we have this massive franchise family. how can we do more to attract younger people to apply for roles? And you can't say we want somebody under the age of 30 to come and invest in our business. You kind of get what you apply for, but how can we make it more appealing to that generation?
I think they have to see, in terms of what you're putting out there, the profiles, or even in, frequently asked questions, they've got to see someone that maybe looks like them. And it's the same in anything, isn't it? That, okay, that's within my capability. That looks like me. That's the same. She's only young. And I think, just going back to Eleanor's journey, I remember her seeing one of our younger franchisees at the time, and I think that gave her internally, there's someone else of this age that could do that. So taking ownership to put it out there, giving that wide diversity of the people that are in your business,
and
putting them as a beacon of light.
Mm-hmm. And maybe finding something that you do enjoy, and then seeing, actually, is there already a tried and tested model that's already working that I can then invest into? Because I think, you aren't taught that much at school. Like you said, it's beauticians, vets, football, or that kind of thing. And for me, it was singing. I just loved to sing. I didn't particularly want to go and perform or be the next West End performer, but all I knew my passion was singing. So if there and then I had something to show me that this is a possibility, this is an option, this is an avenue that you could go down to, that would have been incredibly helpful, I think, for me.
I mean, I did a BTEC National in Computing and was like, I'm going to program games. And that was my thing at 17.
Didn't quite make it there, did you?
No, when I realised quite how complex programming was, and if you put a semicolon in the wrong place, you were absolutely screwed. That was it for me.
No. I think also, it takes it, it's down to the recruitment process too. So normally people will look at a job ad, or they're just searching through to see what piques their interest. And it's quite often you will see a lot of requirements for the role, and then there'll be some preferred things. And as youngsters, sometimes there's a lack of confidence to put yourself forward anyway. So I think if people are prepared to give them some training and give them a pathway to develop that, we should be really open about that on the job role or the opportunity. And not expect that they're going to know that that's happening in the workplace.
For me as well, some of the best people I've come across, they don't have the best CV. Actually, they interview really well face to face. You bring them into the business, give them an opportunity, and they just thrive. So that's also what we look at when we're recruiting for certain roles. But just going back to your point, I think for me, the key time to try and bring people in is university level. I look at the number of my friends who have done different degrees and now they work in jobs that is non-relatable to those degrees. Well, actually, back 14 years ago, what did I know about franchising? What did they know about franchising? Nothing. Now it's all I ever get. What about this? What about that? What about franchising? And it actually makes people think slightly differently to just being employed. But it's about showcasing there's fantastic opportunities within franchising.
Just on that, if you had the opportunity to go back to your university and sort of showcase what you've achieved since you left, would you be open to that?
100%. And I actually think when you spoke about opportunity before, the question I would ask is, do we do enough to showcase what opportunity is there to people in universities, colleges?
I don't think we do.
No.
And I think there's the opportunity. I think if we can connect kind of grassroots, really successful franchisees like yourself, and then put them in front of the students to inspire so they can explore this for themselves, but with some real meaningful evidence in front of them, I think that would be great.
With McDonald's, what they look for from the franchisees as well is what we do in the community.
Yeah.
So I have quite a lot of contacts with local schools, and we do a number of different initiatives to support the schools. But it's then about what can we do in terms of careers. Now we do take some people once they finish school, but it's also bigger picture stuff of can they get into franchising, and as previously discussed by Pip, it was 2025 you can have your own business, and it's that I believe we need to showcase, and we need to use live examples of who's done what, how they've done it, and ultimately showcase what success can look like.
Yeah.
What do you think the benefits of having younger people in your business are?
I think there's so many benefits of having younger people. I think, for me, I think a sense of naivety I definitely did when I started, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think you don't overanalyze things. You're more willing to take risks. You have kind of more freedom to make the mistakes and get back up and learn from them. You have so much more energy, enthusiasm. You're hungry to learn. And I think technology is always a little bit on our side too.
I strongly agree with you on that basis. What about you?
For me, there's nothing more rewarding when you see a quiet, vulnerable 16-year-old come into the business, and 6 months later they're this person, and you walk in and after double take, is that person the same person that walked in 6 months ago? So for me, the majority of our workforce is 16 to 24. And actually, I love working with my senior management team, putting my arm around the shoulder and just talking to them about how they can progress and move through from being a crew member all the way through to being a salaried manager. And it is great to see the trajectory that some of those people go on. Ultimately, though, it's down to us as leaders to support that journey. If we don't support that, then nothing's going to change. But for me, it's the bread and butter for us, and it's what we have to look at continuing. There's new generation Z, think very differently, very challenging, want to do things in different ways, but we then have to look at that and adapt as business leaders, business owners, on how are we going to work to get the best out of these people.
It's making me think they want more flexibility and more balance, don't they? And that's absolutely crucial. But I think that's actually not just that generation. I think it's a whole generation of people now are like, particularly after COVID, we want to get that work-life balance right.
Yeah, the landscape shifted massively, hasn't it? And to that's one of the reasons I think young people are absolutely necessary, because it's fresh perspective. You've got to have the generations represented within the workplace. And to be sustainable in business, I think that's really key, to have those different minds and thought processes and backgrounds coming together to navigate the ups and downs of business generally. Yeah.
They bring us lots of learnings. We've got to listen to our young people. Certainly from a social media point of view, or the tech, as you've touched on. I mean, they're just brilliant, and they know faster, quicker ways. They'll bring you a challenge, but it will help the business to evolve.
Yeah.
Massively important.
And I think in terms of if you were thinking of purchasing a franchise at a younger age, for me, I would leap at the chance again. At the time, I was 22, I was still living with my mum and dad. I didn't have anyone depending on me financially. I didn't have a mortgage, I didn't have children. So I did have that youth on my side to just leap into it and not really... Obviously, I had the risks, but they were a little bit less than maybe if you're a bit older.
Do you think the way into franchising, because of funding, you are going to need investment to invest in a brand and get yourself up and running? Do you think that's going to be the thing that stops the younger generation from coming in? Is that access to finance?
Yes, but I think the banks seem more open to taking more of a risk on the younger generation. I think ultimately, though, franchisors need to look at what these people bring, and actually, can we look at different ways of getting them into the business quicker, but without the finances? Allow them to build equity within their business and then start to borrow money to pay off and build their business. Now, for me, I think within that, it depends on the size of the franchise. As we know, there's multiple different franchises that you can go to. But if I look at my first franchise, the deposit was 20 grand. Against my second franchise, it was over 200. A very different ball game across the two franchises.
Very different returns, and it's a win-win relationship, isn't it? So I think you're right. If the franchisor can find a way to invest, this is a mutual beneficial relationship that lasts a long time. You're going to get the returns at the end of the day as a franchisor, aren't you, Jay?
Yeah. It's completely a partnership. It's a win-win. Don't see money and finances as the barrier to asking that question and finding a route forward, because there will be a way of making that work. 100%.
Can I ask them, as a franchisor, what do you do to support exactly that?
So we will do payment plans, we'll spread it, we'll take a certain amount of the percentage and then they'll buy back over time. We'll find all sorts of ways. If that person is the right fit and they really want this and they fit everything else, the money thing we can sort together.
Okay.
That's great. So you're getting creative.
I think
to work together to give the opportunity.
I think you have to, because ultimately if that person's really, really successful, you're going to be successful anyway. You know, I'm not going to give a franchise or award one to someone who isn't the right fit. I'm not saying that, but if they are exactly the right fit, let that be the hurdle that we overcome together.
Yeah, I think it does depend on the franchise model, doesn't it? I mean, as you say, it's so many shapes and sizes and investment levels. And so something that is maybe premises based is a bit more tricky to share that risk initially, but you know, there are so many opportunities, aren't there, for people and different brands that are doing as you are, Jane, and maybe a buy share kind of scheme.
I love that idea, and I think it's the way we are seeing more of the young generation coming in. Is they've worked in the business and the franchisor knows them, so they're making that investment in them. One thing, I suppose, final thoughts, if you were to give your kind of top thing that you think that we as an industry and as people should be doing, what is it?
I think getting in front of people. I think continuing to be supportive but on a wider scale. Talking more, open dialogue, communicating with the younger people. Just like Jane said, having role models and people that the younger people can see that, oh, they look like me, why can't I do that? And then encouraging them to ask questions and not feel patronised or anything like that, really. I think, it's just trying to get in the right rooms in front of the right people.
I think if I put myself back to 22 and I didn't have the opportunity, I did. But what I know now, it'd be about knock the door down, send emails, pick the phone up. It gives great opportunity, gives you a great career path, but also the networking it brings as well, meeting new people, successful people from different franchises. It's all about opening avenues up for yourself to create an opportunity to own your own business.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it's about creating a strong network so that we can educate. And that is, the schools, the colleges, the universities, what we spoke about earlier. But then once people are aware of it, making it very accessible to find out more. And whether that is reading the magazine or popping on the website, and people like you guys sharing your story so they can relate to it. I think just, being accessible to them if they want to know more.
Brilliant.
I have to say, getting in front of people and speaking. So just imagine if every one of the franchising community went to their local college or local university and did one talk in the next 12 months. I mean, the impact that would have would be huge. And
well, BFA, MBA programme, toolkit for franchisors and franchisees to get out there. And thank you very much for your time today. I think we have two phenomenal examples of what franchising can do if you are under the age of 30 and want to come in. These two guys have shown exactly what franchising can look like. So as long as you've got a passion and you want to put all of your energy and enthusiasm into something, then maybe get in touch with us. You can ask some questions in the chat, or you can have a look on the website at thebfa.org. Thank you very much for watching. Hi everyone, welcome to our insight session. Thank you so much for watching. Please do keep your questions and your comments coming in. We have some questions already, so let's get those kicked off. So first up, in your experience, what skills do young entrepreneurs need to succeed in franchising? So Jane, you recruit lots of young entrepreneurs. Talk to us a bit about the skills that you're looking for.
Oh my goodness, so many skills. Great communication skills, verbal, written, massive set of enthusiasm, willingness to learn, all of that passion. We can learn so much from young people, actually. So, and they've got a big skill set to be able to bring to business and to growing brands and businesses as well.
And Eleanor, what about you? You know, from your perspective, you know, but one, bringing on young entrepreneurs, but secondly, being one yourself, what skill set do you think you bring?
I think enthusiasm, you've got to love what you do and you've got to have that drive to want to do it as well. I think when you're a franchisee, although you've got a wealth of support and experience from other people in the network, but at the end of the day, it's kind of down to you and it's your responsibility to grow that franchise as big as you want or as little as you want. So I'd say having that enthusiasm and that energy and having the drive as well.
Definitely more energetic. I'm counting myself in the younger generation, of course. Johnny, you mentioned about knocking on people's doors to start with. One of the questions that's come up is like, how can I start exploring franchise opportunities if I'm unsure where to begin? So as a young person, what made you kind of look at McDonald's to start off with? Where did you start out on your due diligence journey to decide what was right for you?
Yeah, so I was previously in franchising before this, so I guess at a young age, perhaps some people may say I'm a bit of a veteran in it. But for me, there's multiple ways. I think the first point of call is look online. There's plenty of exhibitions that the BFA organise, that franchisors organise. But one of the big areas I do feel there's huge opportunities within colleges, universities, and how can we get franchising out there for people to go after it, understand it, get involved in business, be self-employed, drive, deliver the standards that are expected. But ultimately, that has to come through strong advertising. How can we get into franchising? But also don't be afraid to ask people. I'm very inquisitive. Be inquisitive. Ask people, message people on LinkedIn, social media, but ask the question is where I would start.
Fantastic. We are absolutely, since we did the original live recording of this, building a really strong relationship with Roehampton University. So hopefully we will be launching a pilot later this year, which franchisors can get involved in to kind of talk about what they're looking for in young entrepreneurs. Eleanor, coming back to you then, in terms of your journey, what was it that you did to start exploring franchise opportunities and choosing the one that you picked?
I think that I was very lucky because I already worked within the franchise that I've then purchased. So I understood the ethos, it aligned with me. I just enjoyed going to work at that time. So my journey was, it was quite a luxury that I had, that I worked within the business before having to take a leap or a risk to then become a franchisee. But I think I was 22 when I became a franchisee. So for about 3 or 4 years, it wasn't in my head. I didn't even know what a franchise was. I never thought I'm going to be a business owner or anything like that. I never really set out to become that. I just kind of saw the operations and the behind the scene of running a business, as well as how important communication is and the networking to suppliers and customers and all that kind of thing. So for me, I think it was a very natural path, which I know not everybody has. But I just kind of took that leap and realised that I was seeing Jane and other franchisees doing it. They were at the time a lot older than me, but I think there was maybe 2 or 3 that were just slightly older than me. But I was seeing how successful that could be, and then kind of realised that there's nothing else that I really want to do. So that's when I decided that this is where my path and my journey starts.
Let's touch a little bit then on barriers to entry. It's one of the things that young entrepreneurs do struggle to get into franchising, because there is age discrimination or discrimination because you don't necessarily have the same amount of experience as somebody older would. What do you think some of the barriers are and how can we overcome them, Johnny?
Yeah, so for me, I think
what I've seen over the last 10 years been in franchising, there was very much barriers when I came in. I look at the previous franchisor that I was part of, and now it's a very different place to when I went in there at 22. There's a lot of younger franchisees. I think some of it is opportunity. Second piece of it is franchisors are actually looking at younger franchisees and seeing what they offer. And I think that's been a complete mindset shift for a franchisor, that actually young people deserve as much of an opportunity as somebody who's mid-40s, mid-50s. I think the biggest challenge coming in there is the financial side of things. What support's on offer? Can you beg, borrow, steal like you would if you set up your own business that's not in franchising? And look, it's tough for the first 2 or 3 years in particular, but that is part of being a business owner. I certainly think we're breaking down the barriers. I mean, I just look at McDonald's as a franchisor. There's an incredible amount of younger franchisees coming into the system now. And that is because they've seen what opportunity that young people can bring to the system within franchising. But again, often the sticking point has been financials, but McDonald's offer additional support now in terms of getting people through the door.
And Jane, that's something that a lot of franchisors need to start considering. How can they attract and keep young talent within franchising? And how do you get them in the first place? How have you done it?
I think it's about that full life cycle throughout the franchise family, really. You know, from certainly for a franchise like ours, which is drama, singing young people aged 4 to 18, you know, taking them on a journey, helping them to develop through as assistants and then tutors, and developing our people so that this sort of becomes a circle of life, and that they can see a path through to becoming a vice principal or a principal and a franchisee in their own right. And I think as franchisors, we've got to be committed to doing that, and showing people a bigger, longer path for them. I also think as franchisors getting out there into our local communities and working with schools, colleges, speaking at every opportunity to bring franchising into people's world that perhaps wasn't. Because actually, when you walk down the high street, or not, as the case may be, as the high street's dying off, but as we walk down, many organizations and businesses are franchises, but people are unaware of that. So it's about us raising awareness in our local communities, all of us collectively as franchisors and franchisees pulling together, and raising the awareness of what a franchise can do for a young person.
Brilliant answer. Johnny, looking at it from a franchisee's perspective, you're obviously quite a large employer of staff. What do you do to attract young talent as a franchisee into sort of bringing them in and then training them up from your perspective?
Yeah, I think there's an element of just standard recruitment, but I think also at times, particularly with COVID, we've had to think outside the box. How can we get people in? How can we fast track them through? How can we get them on management courses? McDonald's, again, has developed massively over the last few years, whether it's a degree program, apprenticeships. It's huge within the system now, and I really encourage that amongst my employees. And it's about coaching, nurturing that talent and developing it. You're not going anywhere if you don't do that. And I talk to a lot of my salaried managers about, you're actually a full-time coach, and it's just about coaching people to become great at what they do. With that, quite often you can build a talent pool very quickly. And look, progression isn't for everybody. Sometimes it's just they come in and they want to be a crew member. Other people have ambitions to go on and be a business manager or a supervisor. And that is what makes McDonald's great.
So Eleanor, Jane touched on local community stuff. What do you do to kind of get yourself out into the local community so people know of you, and can maybe look at you as a bit of a shining light, someone to look up to and think, I want to be a franchisee when I get bigger too?
I guess with the industry that we're in, we obviously deal with children and young people. So for me, it's like Jane said, it's kind of like a full circle. So we kind of are attracting pupils, we're building like a trust within parents and colleges and schools, and we're getting in there. So whether it's an assembly or workshops, and just kind of like getting in front of them and giving them a feeling rather than just a piece of paper with words on it, and kind of giving them something that they feel inspired by. So we, like I said, we go into schools and we do our assemblies. We've also done some business talks at high schools as well, and actually chatting to the year 11s that, I mean, it's a tricky time, year 11. You never really know what to do. Sometimes you naturally just go to college or you follow your friends. And I wish that I had an opportunity to learn about franchising. But like I said, the natural progression in your education is usually college or BTEC and then university. So yeah, it's kind of just trying to get in front of people face to face, not always on an email or social media, and just giving them that positivity and that empowerment as well.
Yeah, we've got a lot to do, I think, to get franchising on the curriculum. It's something that I think if more people knew about it, it would change maybe their career path and what they do from leaving school and college. A great question that's just come in. What support is available for me being a young... That's not what it says at all. It says, what support is available for me being young, not knowing what I need to get started? So, Johnny, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think this it goes back to colleges and universities. I think this has to come through education, whether the BFA can somehow get involved at GCSE A level, whether that's colleges, whether that's university. I just look at my career progress and my I went to university to do quantity surveying. Somehow I've become a McDonald's franchisee. The two couldn't be any further apart. But it's about seeking out that opportunity as well. And you've got to be active yourself within doing that. If you think it's just going to fall on your lap, it's not. That isn't life. That's not business. That's not franchising. But it's about doing the research. Franchising isn't for everybody, but it's for a lot of people. And is it right for you? Look at examples, go to the exhibitions. The exhibitions for me have been a game changer. You see so many different franchisors that actually you come across franchisors that you never knew existed, and they might be the right fit for you. But you've got to research, you've got to spend time looking into it and not be rash in your decision making.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it's really easy. You can get free tickets for the shows. There's a couple that take place during the course of the year. So there's loads, like you said, of information out there. So do we think there are any common misconceptions that young people might have about franchising? And if so, how do we work on correcting those? Jane?
It depends who they're listening to, I suppose. I just wanted to go on from what Johnny just said then as well. Like, you've got to be brave. So what support's out there? Go and ask those questions, pick up that telephone, send that email, go to that exhibition and just ask, because you'll be so surprised how much support is within the whole franchising community. All the franchisors pretty much know each other or will recommend each other as well. I know sometimes if someone picks up the phone to me, I'll say, go and speak to such a body, or, you know, this one might be better for you. And I think you've got to be really brave in that. So sorry, Pip, I was just had that in my head. And what
No, 100%. So misconceptions. Do we think there are misconceptions that young people might have about franchising? And if so, how can we as an industry correct them?
Yeah, I think there's good and bad in every industry, and it might be that a family member or someone close to someone has had a bad experience. You know, that happens in life, in every sort of walk of life and career. I think people often think that franchising is pyramid selling, or it's some sort of network marketing or something that's making a fast buck, or any of these things. And actually, I think we have to work really hard to unpick that and educate people, all of us educate people on the fact that you're in business for yourself, not by yourself, that you'll be fully supported, and that it's a partnership and you're the captain of the ship and you're just not steering those waters on your own of entrepreneurship. So yeah, I think there are misconceptions out there. I just think we have to get better at helping people to see the benefits.
Eleanor, have you come across any, you know, from talking to people when you say, look, I'm in franchising, that they have any misconceptions of what it is?
I think like very similar to what Jane said, but within kind of my age range, again, people don't really understand what it is. So it's like, oh, you run your own business, but you don't. So it's kind of, it's having that absolute support behind you. You've got someone that's backing you. You've got a network of people that want you to succeed. But like I said before, you are completely responsible for your growth. Someone's not just doing it for you. You've got to kind of push through and have that drive. So I think, I think that there's just not much education around it, to be honest. I think a lot of, like, when I first went into franchising, a lot of my friends just didn't understand what it was at all. So I think it's just kind of educating people that you like I said, you've got such a support there, but it's your business.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I think I frustrate most of my friends with. So we walk down the street and I'm like, it's a franchise. Did you know that's a franchise? Oh, this is a franchise. Or guess what? And they all go, oh, it's a franchise. So it's one of those things that you kind of get to the stage where you can educate people just by talking about the brands that are in franchising that they wouldn't know about. It's one of my favorite things to do.
That's it.
So we've got a fab question around equity share schemes. So what do we think about having them? So the franchisor retains the majority share in the franchise outlet, but the younger person that's coming in or buying in, they come in over time, and bit by bit they buy a larger stake in the business. What do we think? Good solution? Something that franchisors should do? Johnny?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And actually what I've seen in both franchisors that I've worked for, they give the franchisee an opportunity to come in where you almost work for the company for a period of time to build equity, or you rent, in McDonald's case, a restaurant off them for a period of time to build equity. And just with the expense of some franchises, it's the only way that young people will get in. But what I certainly believe it does is it drives the right behavior, because you're protecting it, knowing that you're going to be buying this franchise at some point, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So it is a way forward. And I think what we've got to look at, though, is it goes back to my original point that it has to be right for both parties. And this is why it's so important to get into the detail of franchising, because yes, you have all the support. Yes, you have all the advertising. Yes, you have the BFA there, but it's easier than setting up a business from scratch with marketing, finance, sales, building the brand. And that's what we need to remember, that there's longevity in franchising as well, which is one of the key reasons why I came into it. Again, it's an opportunity that I was given by coming in where I didn't have to put the 20, 30, 40, 50,000 pounds down straight away. So absolutely, it's the right way forward.
100%. And we're seeing it more and more across franchise businesses bringing in almost young guns programs to try and drive that entrepreneurship. Okay, we have one last question and I'm going to ask it to each of you. It's, what piece of advice would you give to a young person considering franchising as their career path? Who wants to kick off? Go on, Eleanor, you go.
Oh, me.
Casey's is really good, and then Jane has to think up another one.
No, mine won't be that good, I'm sure. I was just going to say, probably do your research, find a brand or a company that really resonates with you and your ethos and you feel excited about. Ask questions, look for opportunities, say yes as much as you can to things. Have that support system around you, and if they don't support you, just keep going. And have fun with it.
Fantastic. Johnny?
Yeah, I think very similarly, you need to find a franchise that matches your values. That's so important, but don't be naive to the hard work that will be ahead, and you've got to prepare yourself for that. But without a doubt, go for it. It's the best decision I've made at 21 years old. And at 35, I don't regret anything up to now.
Fantastic. Jane?
The only thing I've ever heard someone say is, I wish I'd done it sooner. So don't wait for the right time. Be brave, whatever age you are now, just, put pole in the ground and think, I'm going to really start researching this and go for it. But you're going to have to be brave and have that gutsy determination.
1,000%. At the end of the day, age is purely just a number. And if you've got the drive and the passion, the will and the commitment, then absolutely franchising can be successful. Thank you everyone so much for tuning in and for engaging questions during this session. In franchising, collaboration and communication are absolutely key. And at the BFA, we understand that embracing diversity is essential for our success. These sessions have been completely put together to foster an open dialogue where everyone's voice is valued and heard. So let's keep moving forward with those positive changes, learning and growing in franchising and beyond. If you want more information about anything in relation to franchising, please visit our website, thebfa.org, or email us with any questions that you have, and that's press@thebfa.org. Once again, our huge thanks to McDonald's for partnering with us on these insight sessions, and thank you once again for watching. We'll see you soon.